Huh?
You stopped.
Well, tell me something about your upbringings, your parents, and where'd you grow up and all that.
I guess a regular New York upbringing. My father had a fit when I wore lipstick for the first time. It was, old fashioned, I guess, and everything.
Say something more about your family, your upbringing.
What can I tell you? My father drove a cleaning truck, I think, picked up cleaning to bring to a store. And my mother was, a housewife. And my uncle, he was my uncle by what? Second uncle? What do you call that? A great uncle? He had a shoe store down the hill. No, he repaired shoes. Yeah, that was cousin Shirley's father, huh? And they had gotten married and moved to California. Yeah. Strange feeling, like it was and never was. Weird. But I don't know, something attracted me to Norm that first date. And my mother, when I came home, my mother said, "Oh, you look so different." I was just very happy, very elated. First and last time, probably. No.
Where is your mother from?
My mother was from Russia, I guess. Yeah, she had came from a big family, 3 girls, and I think 2 boys they were. It's a shame. It's so different nowadays, where grandparents are so interact with their grandchildren now. Never interacted with my grandmother. I really don't remember how much I ever even saw her. But it's such a difference nowadays, where you're just so, close to your grandchildren and live a life with them, where before the grandparents didn't have much to do with the grandchildren. They didn't know. Weird.
And you, Dad?
Well, I remember I was very close to my mother, Miriam, and when we moved to Walton Avenue, this was a big, it was a big pickup for us, because we always lived in the East Bronx, and then we moved to the West Bronx. So my mother died at age 39. But I remember that I myself was a very wild child, and I think my parents had a rough time in controlling me. And I had 2 brothers. My brother.
You were the oldest, though.
I was
Yeah.
the first in the family.
Yeah.
And I had my brother Jerry, and my brother Alan, and there was about 6 years between Jerry and I, and about 13 years between Alan and I.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think my parents may want to have more children, but they were, it was during the Depression.
Yeah,
They didn't have
money.
They didn't have the money, and it takes a lot of money to raise a family, raise children in the family. give them the best they wanted. But I remember myself as I always used to like sports. I used to play what they called stickball, which was a broom handle stick, and you hit a rubber ball with the broom handle stick, and I think I was a pretty happy kid, but I do remember my mother. She was from Poland. My father, he was from Austria, and my father was always seemed to be working. He had a sheet metal factory shop, which he called it, and he always, he made a living, but I know he had a very difficult time during the Depression in the 30s. Very difficult. And I remember with my brother Jerry that when he was very young, I think 5, 6 years old, he had a problem with his ears, and he had a double mastoid operation. And my parents really couldn't afford the operation, but somehow they got through it, and Jerry got through it also. And my brother Alan, he was born in December 1942. That's when we had moved to the West Bronx. And one of the reasons we moved to the West Bronx was because I had an aunt. It was actually, I guess, my great aunt, because it was my mother's aunt, and she lived across the street from us. And
They were nice ladies.
my mother was very close to her. Her name was Aunt Lena, and she had a sister, Aunt Rose, who lived downtown Manhattan. And my mother was close to these aunts because her family was in Europe, and they never really came over. And as far as my father goes, my father had a father who was here in the United States. His name was Adolf. And Adolf and my father were not that close, but I remember my father really survived because he had a lot of friends, and through the years he stayed with them when he met them, I guess, overseas. And
Did your father have a brother?
yeah, my father did have a brother, but his brother had died of pneumonia, but this was back in Europe. So, and we were really getting, up in the world a little when we moved to the West Bronx, which was on Walton Avenue, and then my mother died suddenly, and my father had to break up the family because my brother Alan was only 2 months old, 2.5 months old, and he couldn't take care of him, and there was no one to take care of. So he had to put Alan into a home, and my father and Jerry and I, we moved to an apartment a friend of next door to a friend of my father's in the same apartment building, and his name was Danny Geisinger, and Danny and his wife Sophie, they more or less looked after Jerry and I
But she was,
during the day.
but she wasn't sick then, was she?
No, no. I
Oh.
think she had symptoms, but she
She wasn't,
wasn't sick.
because she lost her leg.
And so my father then he looked for he was looking for a wife, someone to unite the whole family,
Keep them together.
keep
yeah.
us together, because my brother Alan was in a home and Jerry and I were together. And
He was in a home till he was a year old, wasn't he?
Alan was in a home till he was a year old because my mother died on February 3rd, 1944, and my father didn't get married again until January 1945.
So 2 years. Mm.
No, 1 year,
Oh, yeah.
a little less than a year. And he married Bella Pavlova, and that was
She
her
looked like a
name.
Bella Pavlova.
Simone,
What?
you're on film.
So,
Yeah,
who's going to see it beside her?
yeah, you never know.
No.
Anyhow, so he married her, he married Bella, and Bella also had a son, and she also had 2 stepchildren.
Mm.
So, but the stepchildren didn't live with her. So, eventually what happened is that after they got married, and we were living in that apartment, there were 6 of us
Mm.
living in the apartment, and it was close quarters, and they wound up buying a house in Pelham Parkway.
How much were houses then?
They paid, it's amazing, they paid $10,000
Oh, God.
for
It's
a
a brick-
house that
Brick
had
house.
a finished basement, that was the first floor, down below. Then they had, the second floor was the kitchen and a beautiful dining room and a living room. And the third floor, they had 3 bedrooms. So, and that was only $10,000. Amazing. And
What'd they sell it for?
I think they sold it for $25,000.
Huh.
Yeah, after living there
So
many
different,
years.
So different.